I am Käthy Eli Phoenix, and today I will talk about Isekai again, because I love Isekai. So, what to expect? The backstory saga continues. If you have listened to me before, then I will talk about my family, because that's what I talk about. Then there will be a lot of graphs, because we need facts, because otherwise how can we appreciate our anime and manga? Then we'll look at family traditions and the cost of family in different specific countries. Then family through the lens of Isekai, because we need Isekai part as well. And then I will give recommendations. So my family, I come from a family of anime weeps. And most of us can attend Desucon, not all yet. And little siblings, our first anime was Inuyasha. And you know what? Inuyasha has a lot of family elements. There's the good part of family that has the grandma, mother, and young brother, and then the bad part that has Shoshomaru's and Inuyasha's parents that we don't talk about. So, demographics, also known as a lot of graphs, tiny text. If you have bad eyesight like me, then I recommend coming more to the front. Also, we have a special guest this time because Korea. So, how important is family in a person's life? One survey that has been conducted regularly has shown that Japan and South Korea, they value family very highly compared to Estonia, but their numbers have gotten better in Estonia. Finland has been so-so as well, but not as appreciative of family as are Japan and South Korea. And when we look at what kinds of households there are, then I found this graph that showed that all of them have a couple households. That's like the norm, the nuclear family. And single parent households are also, for some reason, quite popular in Korea. And I was very surprised by that. And then we have the other household types, which is like living with grandma, your aunt, or anyone that is not your dad or mom. And for some reason, Korea also had a very large number there. But Finland, apparently your grandmas and grandpas live very, very far from you. So I started looking, why was it that South Korea has such a high number of family households that have children? And it turns out that they consider any kind of child that hasn't married yet to be their child. So your mother, who is 78, still considers legally you her child if you haven't married. So that's why there's so many households with children and with single parents, because apparently South Korea does not like single parents compared to Finland and Estonia. And the reason is that children and marriage are very tightly interlinked in Japan and South Korea, while in Estonia you can have children, you don't need the ring or the bling. But in East Asia, if you don't marry, you don't have children. If you have children without the marriage, you are going to have a very bad time, as we'll see later in the Isekai part. So, if we are talking about marriage, then marriage rates have been dropping, and that is also, spoiler ahead, one reason why the number of children per household has been decreasing in East Asia, because if you don't marry, you don't get children. And when do people marry? The age of marriage has been increasing in all 4 countries. Apparently, Finland, you wait longer than the other countries to get married, while for some reason Estonia doesn't have the 90s pointed out, so I guess everyone was still, so to say, married to their country or something like that. So, and men, the age of marriage has also been increasing steadily, but not as drastically as with the ladies. So what comes after a happy marriage? Yeah, it's divorce. And divorce rates have been climbing steadily up in East Asia, Japan and South Korea. And the spike you see is because in 97 there was a financial crisis in Asia, and everyone suddenly decided, yeah, I want to be my own person, because that's what financial crisis does. In Estonia, the rate of divorce has been dropping for some reason. And one interesting thing, if my small little brain cell read it correctly, is that in Finland and Estonia, it seems if you have children, you're more likely to just separate or divorce, while there's no such difference in Japan and Korea. So if you have children and you're still in a relationship, then you are an exception. And now to fertility rates. I have shown this graph without Korea before, and if you put Korea next to it, that has just been whoop, like plummeting, then the Estonian problem and Finland's problem of there not being enough babies is very irrelevant, because most of us have reached a point where we aren't producing enough babies to replace the population. And when it comes to age, then the age of, so to say, mothers during their birth has been increasing in all countries. Why Estonia goes like in this way is because when the Soviet era started to go away, then there was a big public campaign that let's fill the country with children, and that's why everyone started marrying and in a few years started divorcing, because that's what happens. In Finland, it has been steadily going up and is still under 30, while in Japan, it has passed the 30 mark. And in Korea, it's nearing the 35 mark. So everyone is having babies much older than they were before. So you have a baby. Now what? So when it comes to maternity leave, so after the baby pops out, that part of the paternal leave, then there's not much difference when it comes to length or how much is compensated. But when it comes to parental leave, then there is a big difference. Like Finland, it seems like you just can stay at home with your children and just stay there. While in Japan and the other countries, it's you don't have that much of a luxury to stay at home. But at the same time in Finland, you don't get as much money as you would in Estonia. The gender distribution of parental leave has been pretty similar between the countries, as in men are not as invested in using the parental leave as the mothers are. When it comes to father-specific leave, then Estonia doesn't have much. We have paternity leave, so when the baby pops out, then the fathers have a right to get acquainted for a month or so. Meanwhile, in Korea, Japan and even Finland, there is specific parental leave. So this has had a very significant effect on Korea and Japan, because if you look at the graph, it's very tiny, but just 10 years ago, it was very taboo for fathers to stay at home and take care of the children. Then nowadays they are just actually becoming fathers. Now the graphs are gone almost, and we can talk about terminology. So there's two stereotypes for family in Japan. We have the urban salaryman, aka a dude who sends money to some kind of family that probably is related to them genetically, but the housewife takes care of everything else, including social things, the in-laws and such things, and the dad sees the kids on Sunday when he isn't working. And then we have the family business model, where because the parents both probably work for the family business, they don't have the luxury of just very strictly dividing the gendered roles of mother and father, and so dads see their kids more often. And traditional family values, filial piety, is very highly valued, and they do like the parent-child relationship over husband and wife. That was very sad to read about, but also ancestral homes and family graves, because your family connection does not end after you die or someone else dies. Elderly parents should live with their children. That's the main, opinion. The very traditional Japanese way is the ie household system, where you have one, so to say, household head who takes care of everyone else. It, and the household members are just classified further, whether it's jokkei, you have your successors and their spouses, and then you have bokkei, which involves everyone else. Japanese families have been patriarchal and monogamous, so if your wife didn't give you a son, then you try to get a concubine, and if she didn't get you a son, then you adopted an adult man, because you don't have any more time to wait for a competent man to just spring up from someone. So mukoyoshi is still used nowadays, but mostly by big name family companies, let's say Toyota, for example. Yeah. And usually the household headship was inherited by the eldest or most competent. If your eldest one, it was just not good. They had to take care of the aged parents, support family members, and manage them. Sex and age plays an important role, as in if you don't have any sons, then your oldest daughter would take you as an old person to live with them. And the traditional family values are more stronger if they have something to pass down. Let's say you are craftsmen, you have a ramen shop to pass down or such things. If you are a salaryman, then not so much. Family registries. They have been in Japan for a long time, and modern ones are per nuclear family. So if you get married and you are not considered a child anymore according to law, then you get a registration sheet under a shared surname. So you can't have, let's say, separate names from your spouse. You have to just decide which one wins. And courting, because you can't get married before you meet someone usually. They have, because Japanese people are very, group oriented, then their dating life is also very group oriented. You go on blind dates with your friends, and if that doesn't go well, then your parents or anyone else can schedule a meeting opportunity with future marriage candidates. And that's mostly like a work interview. You take your CV with you and you have to look very professional, because otherwise they're like, no, pass. And another thing that is very strange in Japan is the fact that they have very serious considerations for marriageable age. There's a saying that if up until the 25th, a Christmas cake is very tasty. After the 25th, it gets less tasty with every day, until it's no more, you can't sell it anymore. So that's how they view, for example, women. But they have raised the number to 30 something, because they discovered that if we keep discriminating plus 25-year-old women, then they would just give up and not create babies for the government. And marriage hunting, because it's as serious as job hunting. Childlessness has been increasing in East Asia in all kinds of countries, because it's related to marriage, and you need money to have children. So the economic uncertainty, incomplete gender revolution, all these things have contributed to people deciding that we're not having children. And Asia is also very known for their intensive parenting. You need the best for your child. Your child needs to succeed. Unlike some other countries where it's like, yes, the main thing is that you stay alive, you don't eat random shit, and just grow up. And the incomplete gender revolution, it's the fact that despite women being represented in the job market, they don't have much opportunities to become a mother and still have a job, for example. And that's why women make up a very big portion of all part-timers and temporary job workers, which also makes lives for single mothers very heavy and difficult, because if you have a part-time job and you have to raise a kid or two, it's going to be incredibly tough. And even if you are not a single mother, women do more unpaid care work. So it's the household, it's the children, it's your in-laws, it's your own parents. It all needs work. And it doesn't get easier if you're like past the baby age and the marriage, because older people face problems as well. There's a limited number of residential care homes because you have to keep your parents at home with you. So why do we need to make, old age houses? And because the population is rapidly aging, elderly children are taking care of their more elderly parents. Another interesting thing is that the old people, they are spicing up their life. They decide that, yes, we have been married for 50 years, but I don't want to be married to you, because the time when they got married, it was a different time. You didn't get to say that I don't want to marry this dude. But nowadays they can, because those who said marry him are dead. So, yes. Okay, Korean one as well. I will explain later why we have Korea. They are also patriarchal, collectivist, worship their ancestors, filial piety, and the eldest son lives with parents, or other way around. Parents are very hyper vigilant when it comes to raising their kids, and they dating groups, because finding a date is very scary when you're alone. And they had exogamy, so based on surname origin groups. So if you were, let's say, Bing, you couldn't marry a Bing, because that was basically, incest, even though you were just like not even related remotely. Oh. And South Korea had a overseas adoption program after the Korean War, because there was so many orphans that they didn't know what to do with them, so they decided we're going to ship them out. But they didn't stop after the war. They just kept on shipping them out like goods from Amazon. There has been problems, because it has at times turned a little bit criminal, as in you send your kid out to play with the ball, and in the afternoon you don't have your kid anymore, because they have been shipped off to USA. And orphans have a very tough time in Korea, because they do not get the same kind of support when it comes to getting a university or a job that kids in a family would. And reason why so many kids are surrendered is the fact that if you're a single parent, Korea says fui. And now buildings. In Japan, kids don't move out unless they need to go work very far and the train doesn't reach it, or they decide to marriage. So home ownership is not an investment, because you can't really sell that house for any kind of good price afterwards, unlike, let's say, USA. And because it's also related to marriage, and if you don't marry, you don't need a house. In South Korea, it gets more weird, because apparently you buy a house for 2 years. That's their renting system. It was very complicated, but it stonks. Basically, the landlord does with your deposit some stonks, but nowadays the stonks doesn't happen that well. So people are in debt, and they can't, rent a home, so kids stay with their parents. And they can't buy a home because they can't get a mortgage. Cost of family. How much does it cost to raise a kid? A lot, especially if you're in South Korea. In Estonia and Finland, there was a lot of data, but it's somewhat similar. It's probably more expensive in Finland, but not nearly as expensive as in South Korea. So if you have one kid, you're probably very, very, very poor by then. So you can't even think about the second kid. And now about elderly parents, because if they're staying with you because society says you have to keep your older parents with you, then it's good to be a Finn, because apparently you can cover your healthcare costs and care costs in Finland, but in Estonia the government doesn't really care about that. You are quite likely to end up in debt, and you just can't cover your care needs as an old person unless your family helps you. So it's very expensive to be old in Estonia. Not as much in Korea and Japan, but Finland has it very good. Okay, and the Isekai part. I still have some time. So getting isekai and any kind of like big life event, let's say having your first child, you need to learn and adapt because you are in an unfamiliar situation. You have no first-hand experience. You might have heard from your mother that it was very, very hard to raise you, and you have seen maybe some TikToks about diapers or something, but not in this context. And your relationship dynamics change a lot. You have financial changes because diapers are very expensive, and also physical, mental, and health changes because it's very hard to make that baby, first of all. The difference is there is official recognition for giving birth to a baby in Japan, but when it comes to isekai, I did not find any sources that is officially recognized in Japan. Isekai does not give you a clean slate, apparently, because if you just get some, so to say, gifts with you, whether it's little gifts, as in the special seeds your grandpa made and gave to you so you could go to high school and do some gardening projects, or it's your, so to say, family shrine because you have to keep up with the traditions. Even though great grandpa is already dead for longer than you have been alive, you have to still be respectful. And you also get all your regrets because you have probably, if you get isekai, you still have not married. Even if you don't get isekai, you probably haven't married by your age 30. And there is a high chance that if Drought hits you, then you get reincarnated as a baby. So all your adult knowledge transfers into a little baby body. And sometimes, when you're very lucky, you might actually get family members with you. Some lucky ones get their mom, so you don't have to do anything because Okasan will take care of everything. You might get your onesan, but warning, these kinds of series tend to go a little bit sketchy, but the concept is there. And sometimes you get your family pets reincarnated with you because cats are all powerful and they have many lives to isekai with. What kind of families do protagonists come from? Very different families. You might have a family, like in the Potions anime, that is like, yes, do you know how to claim damages? What are the conditions of this deal you made with God? And we're not crying for you because we know you can succeed. That's how we brought you up. And some other families are like just nerd families who are like, yes, very good. One of us at least is a guide into otome games, so let's do it. Then there's families with one child where you have like good loving parents who put all their effort in raising you. And then there are families who are untraditional, as in they have more than one child. Mostly they're rural families. And then we get further off into the bad zone, as in you have orphans. You have either, so if you are past your 30s, it's more likely that your parents are not here anymore. They are in the, so to say, little family shrine. That's usually what happens, and the characters in the isekai like, they probably got killed by wolves or something very dramatic, but no, they probably just died of old age. And then there's orphans and single parent children, especially with Korean media. Then we get into the abuse situation and the very dramatic family backstory where the parents die in a car accident going to the hospital because you got hospitalized or your sister got hospitalized. And then we have the mentally abusive parents who are like, yes, my child is an extension of me, so I'm going to fulfill all my dreams through this child. Child does not have a will of their own. And family is also a very popular catalyst for isekai. The one genre is that either your sister or your child plays otome games or reads light novels, so otherwise you would not have the necessary knowledge to understand what's happening with you. And another, so to say, trope is that your sibling is either the hero or the saintess, and you are needed as moral and physical support because how are they going to manage without Nesan? And another trope that I, honestly, I'm a little bit sick of seeing is the fact that younger sisters seem to die a lot for isekai. And because, as you might have seen at the beginning, I still have a younger sister, so I'm a little bit worried. But yes, for some reason they get hospitalized, and that becomes the driver, the catalyst, the motivation for the main character. Then we have the family abuse pause. We have parents who will sell you to the demons. We have grandpas who decide that, yes, I will WikiHow this cursed object. And also, a very interesting part is synchronizing your death with your family members, because apparently Japan has a lot of earthquakes, and if you manage well enough, all of us might die. And family teaches you skills. In particular, for some reason, dads and grandpas decide that this young child of mine needs to know how to kill a chicken or a deer. And at least I do not know how to do that, so I hope I'm safe from isekai. And next is why I included Korea, because any kind of webtoon I started reading, at some point they revealed that they were either from a very abusive family, they were an orphan, they were from an abusive family and an orphan, or any kind of combination in between. Yes, and there's more. And continuing with the orphan style, it's also very common to explore the orphan topic more closely, as in what happens after the little orphan grows up. The answer is it's very tough and you don't have money. And that's where isekai comes in, because they just provide free, ample family therapy for everyone. You have some kind of behavioral pattern you want to get rid of. That's where your adoptive family comes in. You had bad experiences with father figures. That's why your new father is here. Marriage. It's still very arranged and contractual. Especially if it's villainous tropes or genres, then arranged marriages are all the rage. Parental influence is still very strong in isekai, just like it would be in real life, let's say Japanese context, where your family just hints all the time that you should marry, and my best friend's daughter is still single. So the same thing happens in isekai, but usually they are more blunt with it. And they also have the little I forgot how to pronounce it, but basically the dating CVs. They have them in isekai, and that's a major way to earn a coin for your very poor fiefdom, is the fact that you use magic to create very pretty pictures, so parents can go like, yes, look at my daughter, do you want to marry her? And that was in multiple series, actually. And despite arranged marriages, free love is still, explored. It's not that popular in the world itself, but characters, especially the protagonists, will say that I do not wish to marry, or I do not wish to marry the person you want me to marry. And as I said earlier, after happy marriage comes divorce. And for some reason in isekai genre, they have very strict divorce laws. They have when it comes to divorce laws, you need a lawyer to get you through that. But they don't have any child labor laws. So this is also probably why the children are not very happy if they are in a abusive situation isekai, because the parents can't get divorced, they can't separate. So that's also a reason why it's often used as a plot device. It can be the entire motivation for a series. It can be background information, or it can be the plot device to get both characters to fall in love. Either of those. Now, baby drought. The answer is no, because if you remember, then with Korea, if you have one child, that's more than in Korea a person would have. In Japan, if you have 2 children, that's already more. So compared to Japan and Korea, no baby drought. But the exact number of kids varies a lot. For example, if you are a king or an emperor, you will have a lot of children. If you are a farmer, you are also likely to have children. And another way that high fertility is shown is the fact that there's lots of orphans and lots of child labor. And the population you see in the background in mostly working age, younger working age, or children, and the fact that there's so many early marriages and early births. Parenthood is covered in Isekai by the fact that the main character starts wondering, like, oh, if I was still in my old world, I would have had a kid like this, even though if they were in their old world, they would not have any kids because it's very expensive to raise and a different world. But in Isekai, they start wondering, like, what if? And even if they, are not single by that point, even as a couples, they start thinking that we might have children, but there comes the but part where they use their experience from before, from their previous life, to put, not restrictions, what's the word? Not barriers. Conditions for their new life. As in, if you are neglected in your previous life, you don't want your children to grow up like that. And adoption, the Japanese kind of adoption where you adopt an adult person, that is still visible in Isekai manga especially, where for some reason the Isekai people in the world peoples decide that we're going to adopt this main character, and so the end excuse for this plot device is pretty similar as it would be in Japan. They're going to say that we're adopting you because you're talented, we're adopting you because we don't have any heirs. And that is similar to modern day Japan. They might adopt Toyota might adopt someone into their family, and if they decide that we want someone else, then you are still free to do whatever you want. Single parenting. Single parents are quite common in at least Japanese anime and manga. Protagonists don't need to be married to have children, so unlike in real life Japan. But the same thing does not go for manhwa, where marriage and child rearing are much more linked. When it comes to motherhood, you have varied roles presented. You have a comparison of an entrepreneurial and independent woman who raises her kids while juggling with a career, and then you have ambitious but very neglectful mothers who decide that I do not need that child, but she still has it. And Isekai protagonists do bring positive policies regarding motherhood, as well as refusal to follow the roles given to in the new world, because oftentimes they might remind them of their restrictive motherhood stereotypes at home. And grandmas are still represented. We have grandmas who act as the plot device, who decide that their grandchild needs to be isekai'd. We have grandmas who decide that, yes, I would like to have my midlife crisis in my 80s. And we have grandmas who decide that children should have weapons and instructions on how to use it, because they are very safe grandmas. Pregnancy. If we're talking about anime and manga, pregnancy is not really a big thing, but if we go to the villainous manhwa part, then pregnancy is very popular. It is oftentimes a plot device, as you can see on one of the titles, do all mothers in childcare novels have to die? And they also start to explore more of what it would mean to have a baby. Also, an interesting thing, for some reason, the only characters, the isekai characters who get breastfed are dudes. I did not see a single female isekai protagonist who got the boob. They got bottles. Fatherhood. Just like in real life, fathers are starting to, so to say, take a more active part in child rearing, and they're starting to appreciate their daughters much more. So before, you wouldn't see your father, but in Isekai, suddenly your dad is at your side, even though he's a king or a very busy aristocrat. And another interesting thing is, especially in webtoons, you will see single fathers prominently in series. They are discriminated against. You would expect to see single mothers, but instead it's a single father, and then the entire world around them is like, oh, why did you have a child outside of marriage? That's usually something we're more used to hearing with female characters, but it's very prevalent with male characters. And grandpas are also represented in Isekai, and usually they are riddled with regrets of doing wrong with the previous generation, so they decide to be good grandpas who take their kids to the zoo and stuff. And continuing with dads, because they are starting to be more of a father, they also prefer their daughters very heavily. They will baby them. And they are more likely to say no to marriages when the daughter doesn't want to marry, because who would like to give the daughter away to someone, because no man will be good enough for their baby. Meanwhile, sons are treated more as co-workers. They, like, you know that he's your son, but he's also, for some reason, very, very smart suddenly after this reincarnation event. So they will defer to their sons, but still, keep hold onto their head of the household mentality. It's like, you decide what we're going to do with this battle ahead, but remember, I am still boss. And siblings, because there's also tropes when it comes to siblings. If you are an older brother, you will most likely get a cute little sister, especially if the reason why you got isekai'd was the fact that your little sister in real life got hospitalized and died very painfully and very young. And younger sisters tend to get very, very suspicious stepbrothers, because if it wasn't a stepbrother, it would be even worse. Younger brothers get suspicious on their sons, but it's more socially acceptable because they make anime out of it. And if you are a random adult, then you are likely to get, kids, but you won't say that they are kids. You will say that these are my little siblings, because that makes you feel much younger than someone calling you otosan or okasan. It's like, I am the nene, I am the nini. Another interesting thing is how parents' responsibility and child responsibility is explored. Isekai tends to be rife with parents who just neglect their children. They don't abuse them, but they neglect them. Especially if a child has been neglected and abused before, they tend to find parents or adoptive parents who are more, supportive, but not necessarily. You might also stumble on parents who will sell you, or who will decide that a son has to bear the guilt of his father, in this case a daughter and her single father. Children in the series start to realize that this is wrong, and the protagonists themselves bring the mentality from the previous life with them that says don't abuse children. And throughout their adventures, they will usually meet new, found family that will help them along their journey. And another question is that if you are a reincarnated adult, you should be actually so to say capable of shouldering adult responsibilities to a certain extent, but for the world itself you're still a baby. Oh, it's orange. And another question is that because many main characters who get isekai'd are usually in their early 20s, so the question is how much responsibility should young adults take, because when comparing a 20-year-old to a 32-year-old, there might be a big difference in experience. Families come in all shapes and sizes. Especially good example is Irumakon for that, and also families that are more in line with the traditional Japanese form, where it's your older mother and her adult children who are not married. That's also represented. Oh, I have no more time soon. Anyway, found families, that's also a very popular trope, especially when there's any kind of adventuring involved. Or orphanages. Orphanages are also very popular. Oi, 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 oi. And for some reason, isekai is rife with older ladies who have lost their husbands who decide that you are her favorite new child she never had. Recommendations, we will go fast, I have only 3 minutes left. For those who read Danmei, then I recommend this when it comes to family, because it, without spoiling, it has cute children and it has grandpas who don't know that they're like proper grandpas, and they discover this role that if you are a so say old-timey person and suddenly children are coming at you and they're not screaming, that's a good experience. The Tanaka family reincarnates. That was an interesting isekai series because that is basically the entire family dies, but the family is not so to say children, so like small children and their parents, but it's 30-year-old children and their old parents, and suddenly the parents are like, we are young, you are young, please give us grandbabies, and the main characters, they can't say anything because they are underage, so and they have to follow. If the mom and dad say you're going to get engaged and so to create heirs, you are going to create them, but that's more like a so to say joke behind the actual plot. It's very nice. It also has cats, very cute little cats. Oh. Also, a good example of when the protagonists get isekai'd as a adult into a kid body, and then the other sort of supporting characters who are, let's say, 15 start to woo you, then you feel more like you're babysitting than actual romancing. Another webtoon. Basically what would happen if the bad stepmother was the biggest stan for Snow White. It's wholesome. It does, so to say, covers some traumatic events regarding family and also being an adult woman in Korea, especially if you're overweight and not married and, so to say, single. But otherwise, pretty and wholesome, unless trauma spice. Then we have an anime from a manga adaptation. Basically, if a nerd family decided that, no, not decided, but one of the nerds gets isekai'd and the other nerds in the family will, so to say, have to game to save the person. There's lots of, so to say, references to old Japanese media and so the isekai series, for example, Candy Candy, but it's Candy Bleep. Then the weakest tamer began a journey to pick up trash. We have the reincarnation part is like minuscule in it, so but it's still technically isekai, even though the actual isekai person is basically a useless imaginary friend giving advice that is not relevant because it's another world and they don't have planes. It does have very shitty parents and very good and handsome men becoming adoptive uncles and grandpas. Then we have Shirohyo. What if your parents wouldn't take any responsibility for giving birth to you? Twice. You have your, so to say, half-brother, and your parents, they just do not know how to adult. And you have to entertain both gods and your baby brother using handicrafts. financial stability isn't the only thing necessary for a happy family. This is the manga for that. You have main character who is like, I am rich, and the fiancé is like, shh, don't talk about money, or he says lopeta. And then you get bonked on the head, you remember things, that family is important. This is the very sketchy series, as in what happens if you get reincarnated and you have a very, very sketchy stepbrother. Read at your own discretion. Wah, wah. I recommend this series. I could hold an entire presentation about it. Basically, if you, recover your memories that you really, really liked old men, and then as a punishment you get married to a very old, handsome, handsome in your sense, man, and then you have a very great life, destroying other lives. Absolutely recommend. Pretty art, pretty characters, and very good example of a healthy relationship. And if you like, soap operas, then there's a webtoon for you. It has underage drinking narcotics, it has DILFs, it has secretly gay relatives that are not so secret, but they have drama. And the plot has many holes, but it's still, if you want something trashy for an evening read, then I recommend it. Honorary mention, not really an isekai, but it dwells the topic of isekai. Mother loses son, decides the son got isekai'd, son did not get isekai'd, but mother is grieving. There's citations, I couldn't fit them on one page, so I made them very small. Thank you.